You're listening to the Modern Healthcare Back Office, a podcast dedicated to solving the billing issues and gridlock facing the healthcare industry, presented by ProChant, hosted by Chuck Ellis and Rachel Schools.
Hey there, folks. Chuck here, and welcome to another edition of the Modern Healthcare Back Office. I am joined, as always, by my amazing co-host, Ms. Rachel Schools.
Hello there, Chuck. How are you?
I am amazing, Rachel. How are you?
I am fantastic.
Wonderful. It is almost the end of the year. I am waiting on pins and needles for my second child to arrive, but before they get here, hopefully we can get through this episode. We are joined by our good friend and infusion expert, Ms. Tina Ratliff. How you doing, Tina?
Great. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic. And Tina, we've been talking about this because it's the end of the year and everybody's making their plans for 2023. And hopefully you've already made most of them by now, but we wanted to go over a couple of tips that we've been talking about amongst ourselves of ways to make 2023 the best year ever, especially if you're in infusion. But before we do that, Tina, why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself, just in case they don't know who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Tina Ratliff. I do all of our training and processes here at ProChant. I'm kind of the director of that. I have, gosh, I don't even want to say how many years. I'm seven. No, let me see. I started when I was 17. I'm 50, so a lot of years in infusion.
Hmm.
Um, I have also worked for some software companies that produce some billing systems, billing softwares used by pharmacies.
Very cool. And how's the weather in Nashville today?
It's sunny, but I think it's one of those tricks where it looks really sunny outside and it's actually pretty cold.
Mhm.
It looks
Well,
beautiful, but I feel like it doesn't feel beautiful.
yeah, it is cold and dreary and rainy over here today in Gainesville, Florida. I think we're getting the storm that Rachel probably had a few hours ago. So it's a nasty squall, as they call it. We don't get a lot of squalls here in Florida. But anyway, we're not here for the weather report. We're here to talk about 2023 and infusion. So we're going to dive in real quick. And Tina, the first thing we had talked about, the three of us, was eliminating the common bad habits that most infusion back offices have from their back office. And we did a whole presentation on this previously a few months ago. So if you didn't see that replay, it's available on prochant.com and you can check that out. Tina, you want to walk us through real quick those 5 bad habits again?
Yeah, so one thing would be this, using manual processes when you have like a billing type software that will actually do them for you. And sometimes it's because it might require some setup that's time consuming, but honestly, 9 times out of 10, it's worth the struggle to get whatever is set up in there so you don't have people keying because that leads to human error and you've got keying errors and then you've got problems. So that's one of the things that I see a lot that could really help companies. Copying previous claims. So sometimes it seems easy. Maybe in your billing system offers a function where you can copy a previous set of charges and it seems like a real time saver, but the problem is that, especially when you're dealing with drugs, it's not a good idea because you really have to make sure that you're billing for exactly what was dispensed in that delivery. So it's I try to kind of veer people away from using that to bill initial claims and go more off of your delivery slip or your order or whatever your system may call that. Overbooking revenue. So new year, new revenue, right? So it's the perfect time at this time of year to make sure, or even before, to make sure that your pricing that's set up in your billing software, or if you're using some type of fee sheets, that you have the most up to date fee schedules. And then if you're able to put them into your software so things will price automatically for you, it's so worth it because if you're just kind of guessing or guesstimating, let's say, and you're overshooting your revenue, that's stuff that's an automatic write-off the day it's billed, part of that if you're overbooking. So it really makes it where you can't determine what should my financials look like next year if you don't have them right this year. Missing information in the system kind of goes back to number one as well. If you have a way to store information in your system so that it's at everybody's fingertips, you want to make sure you do that, including like pricing, things in your billing system that will allow you to, um, not have to manually create claims. Or the thing that I see that every time I see it, it kind of makes the hairs on the back of my neck stick up is when people are calculating out billing units on drug strengths. So like if they have a, 500, like a 5,000 milligram of vancomycin, they got their calculator, click, 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 trying to figure out how many billing units is that. You don't want to do that if you don't have to. And if you have most billing systems, you do not have to. So definitely get that missing information in there so that you can start automating. Following outdated guidelines. So this is a big one. I go into so many pharmacies and I see them just killing themselves doing this extra work to make sure that these claims go out a certain way. And, and usually it's something weird, right? So one of the common ones I see is where some payers do require that you have, like let's say for your per diem, a separate line item for every day. Okay, this is just one example. Whereas most payers don't, right? If that payer ever stops requiring that, or, um, or if you've just always done that because you're like, hey, they're paying it when I do it this way, it's great. The problem is that insurance company is not going to tell you, oh, hey, by the way, you don't have to bill it this way. We'll pay you if you bill it on one line with a dates span. They're not going to give you that information. Um, or any other kind of weird thing you have to do for the insurance for their claims. So you want to make sure that consistently ask them, do we still have to do this way? It takes my biller an extra 5 minutes to do this claim because we're doing all this. Because they don't always tell you about things like that. Some of them are really good about sending you some type of, provider news bulletin type fax or email or whatever, but they don't often, or they'll have something on their site. Unless you go looking for it, the answer, you just keep doing that forever.
All right, great. Resolution number 2, and this is something that all three of us have talked about at some point or another, is the make the 1% improvement. Rachel, you want to take a crack at this one since you've been the one that talked most proficiently on it?
Absolutely. So, yes, I am a huge champion of getting 1% better every day, right? So, what are we talking about? As we go into the new year, we always think about like resolutions, right? And usually our resolutions are fairly grandiose. So, we have big dreams, we have big things that we want to improve. We go ahead, we set that resolution, we write it down, and then we get in and we just kind of fall off. I'm going to give you like a real live example, you know, as it pertains to revenue cycle management. So, Tina, what's some things we would sit around the table, you and I, and talk about and decide we're going to improve?
Communication is a big one. How things
Okay.
are communicated from department to department.
Yep.
Usually that's a big problem in every pharmacy.
Well, you just gave me one that I can't put a number on, and now I'm stuck. But anyway, there is that. We have been working this entire year here at ProChant on communication. So even though it doesn't have a number on it, I can tell you that we have made we've worked on it every day. So we've made a 365% improvement
I love it.
in our conversation, right? What's another one? Let's say we're sitting around and we're talking tactically, Tina. So we want to fix
Like DSO.
we want to fix our DSO and we want to fix our denial rate. Maybe
Yep.
those are our two
Mhm.
things, right?
Yep.
we look at that denial rate, and let's say our target is to have 5% or less denials, and currently we are at 18%, right? What usually happens when you take that down to the next, when you hand that over to the team that would be sort of helping you meet that goal, is it's like, oh my God, how do we get there? That's how much percent improvement, from 18 to 5, like that's a lot, right? So getting 1% better each day is more of a mindset that you sort of coach on, and you roll out and you say, okay, how can we break this down, right, into little bitty teeny tiny pieces and make it better every day? So maybe you take your top denial for your top payer and you work on that every day for a week until it's done, and then you move on. And that's really hard for a lot of people, because we're so focused on everything that we're not fixing right at that moment that we don't. So getting 1% better each day means you focus on the thing that you can fix right that moment. Make sense?
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, you could use that even in your own life, really.
Well, I was going to say, I coach outside of here, right? So this is
Yeah, I love
what
it.
I talk about a whole lot, right?
It's what I tell people all the time who want to make YouTube videos or podcasts. Make the best one you can in the first one and make the next one 1% better.
That's right. That's right.
And that's what we're doing here with this show. So anyway, all right. Resolution number 3: end of year benefit investigations.
Oh, all Tina.
Right?
Yeah, this is a big one. Also, I'll just throw this out there too. Even the beginning of each month, we have a lot of clients that will check their Medicaid patients' benefits on the first day of each month. And now I'm not saying, like a full benefits investigation where you might go to ask them all the questions all over, but at
The
least to make
electronic
sure.
one.
Yeah, just to make sure that their benefits are still active, because, with a lot of states' Medicaids, the person who is covered by that policy is required to go to appointments and provide documentation and things like that. And if that doesn't happen, they can just cut those benefits right off. So it's really important to check on that, because, you may not have any idea if everything's happening as it should. But end of the year, it's really good to do a benefits check at the end of the year. And this can be really cumbersome for a lot of companies. They're like, I'm going to be filling prescriptions on, January the 2nd. When are we supposed to do this? So um, being able to do that electronically is super helpful. Also, maybe the portal, since it's not a brand new patient, you may have already called and got all of their detailed benefits already, but now you're just making sure that they're still active with those benefits. So that's your main goal. So I know that if you use Waystar as a clearinghouse, they have a beautiful what's called batch eligibility check, where they can check a whole bunch of patients at one time, no matter what their payer is. And it's a file, you upload it, and it comes right back and says, tells you eligible, terminated, eligible, terminated. And that even will tell you if you have information in your system that doesn't match what the payer has on file. So, for example, I had a patient and the first name was Billy. So and the intake had male in there. And I ran that benefit check through Waystar, and it came back and said, this is a female and her name is, Billie Jean. So I was like, oh my goodness, we had the wrong sex on this patient. So it even comes back and tells you things. Did it tell you what name they have? If you have people with hyphenated names, that can cause a lot of problems. Sometimes if the payer doesn't have them the same name as they have given you, this will tell you things like that. So that's a beautiful tool if you have access to that. Like I said, I think that's something Waystar offers. But
Yep.
Even if you have to have somebody come in and run them through portals, it's worth it.
It
you know?
is. And so I'm with you, Tina. Doing it once a month is really best practice. And that's sort of what I would take into the new year. But what is it? We're looking out when it's the end of the year, that's when we know everybody's going to change, right? Because most of the health plans run,
Right.
the fiscal year, usually, not always, right? Ours, but it's
Right.
January to December. And this is when you got to be really, really ready to handle those responses and make the updates and possibly make calls, right?
Mhm.
Because once something changes, all bets are off, right? Your
And some of
authorization.
and another thing is with Waystar, with their batch eligibility, some of the payers will allow you to do it for a service date in the future. So I always would run mine on the 31st, but I'd say that the date is the service date was January 1st. And a lot of them would tell me, this plan is terminating on 1/1, this one is not. Then I'd have a few that said, you can't put a future date in here. But it did kind of really make it so that on the 31st, I wasn't having to do 100 patients. I was having to do, 5 patients manually, call or go online.
Yep.
All righty. Resolution number 4, new process changes. Always a good time of the year to look at what you're doing and make sure you're doing it better. So, Tina, why did you pick this as our 4th resolution?
So this is a great time, the end of the year, new year, new process, right? To get things started and kind of, maybe start have your project, this be your day that you kind of go live with new projects. And these are some examples of some that, things that I've done in the past and things that are, if you're going to change it, it's a great idea. So maybe you want to, get rid of that fax machine that you have in your office, using up all your paper and whatnot. You can, it's a great time to maybe find yourself some type of electronic fax provider to try to get everything a little more electronic. Revamping different teams. It could be your intake team, it could be your billing team. Some new process of, now when we get a new patient, we're going to do this and A, B, and C instead of what we've been doing. And then also deploying new software. Maybe at some point throughout the year decided, I really want to change my clearinghouse, or I really want to change this, software we're using to store all of our documentation, or I want to organize it and start a new, plan of where you go to find things. This
Or
is the perfect time.
an analytics
Yeah.
platform. Hint,
Yes.
hint. I've seen some really cool ones over the past couple of days, Tina. So it's like heavy on my mind. So, yep.
All right. And finally, make time for the year-end changes. Or I'm sorry, the end of year close. So, let's go through
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So this is the time where, of course we say every month, um, we say every month, hey, let's get everything done we possibly can and get all the revenue that we possibly can because it's end of month. But now it's end of year, and that's when we really are trying to make sure that everything we can get done is done. Um, especially if you're going in, you're going to start a new year in process. You want to go into that clean. Um, but yeah, so, maybe check through things. So I know one of the things that's hard is, especially when you close, and I know closing is just for everybody, so much work. You're so swamped. It's your busiest days of the year. And checking things throughout the month and staying in balance is a good idea instead of having to worry about that at the end of the year. So, like an example would be maybe a soft close. Maybe, at the end of the month, you lock your transactions down so that, no one can make any changes. It's a good idea, though, throughout the year to look through there and make sure that you're not going to have issues that are, going to cause you problems. So maybe you make sure that you do a soft close. Let's say weekly, you do a soft close where you look through and you make sure, okay, my cash balance is everything for this week. my revenue for this week makes sense. My adjustments are looking good, and you kind of look at that each week to make sure that when you're at the end of the month or even, bigger end of the year, that you're not there till midnight trying to balance cash or trying to, you've got something crazy because your revenue looks way high or your adjustments are through the roof, so it's just a good idea to monitor that.
And on the tactical side, Tina, so not only do we want a soft close, but we want to look at those piles of tickets that aren't confirmed and get them confirmed and make sure we're watching that every week and make sure that that unposted cash is posted, right? So
Right.
nothing would drive me crazier, right? Than every single month, everybody's rushing at the end of the
Mhm.
month and it's just accepted. Because
Yeah.
you and I both know, right? Hey,
Mhm.
if this was flowing the way it should every day and
Yeah.
every week, this wouldn't be happening.
And also a soft close. And I don't know how many of you, because my boss used to drive me crazy with this. You get that email that says, "What are we looking like this month?" On the first week of the month. You're like, well,
That's why I would
just got
literally,
started.
Tina, I had manual ways like every day I had 10 things I would check and I would run reports so that when my boss would I had like a dashboard that was my first thing I did every morning is I would come in and update the dashboard. And I
Mhm.
also had it sort of built so it would project out for me where we would be at the end of the month if we didn't do X. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a
So
little harder for infusion because our claims vary greatly in price.
got it.
So if they said, "Hey, what's revenue look like?" I may bill a, antibiotic claim for $1,000 and have a $20,000 IVIG claim,
Yes, you're right.
so it makes it kind of hard. But if you do that like soft close every week where you go and look at your revenue and pull your numbers, then you're always ready. You can
Yeah.
say, well, as of Friday, we were at blah, blah, blah. Or, it's the middle of the month and we've done this so far. It kind of gives them an idea where they can kind of project what it's going to look like for them
Yep.
and get them off your back.
Yes. Yes, the best way to keep our bosses happy out of our sandbox, right, is to make sure
Show
it's
them
all right.
numbers. Yeah, exactly. Bosses love metrics.
All right. Well, that's it. Short and sweet. We are wrapping up the new year. So we are going to wrap up this live recording. And thank you all for joining us. If anyone has any questions, Tina, where can they find you, follow you, send their questions?
Yeah, anybody's welcome. Message me on LinkedIn. I can receive any messages. So yeah, find me there.
And Rachel, you were also on LinkedIn.
I am also on LinkedIn, Rachel Schools, one of the very few. So
And I
you'll
am also on LinkedIn. There are sadly far too many Chuck Ellises in the world. So go to chuckellis.com. It will direct you straight to my LinkedIn page, though, which is handy. So,
cool.
alrighty. Well, we're going to say a happy new year to y'all here. But before we go too far, if you get a chance, stop by the Apple Podcasts store and give us a 5-star review. That is a great way to help other people find out about our show and learn more about how to be a better back office healthcare expert. And you can, of course, like the video, subscribe on YouTube if that's how you choose to watch us, or subscribe to our newsletter over at ProChain.com so you know when our next webinar is coming. As always, we want to thank you for joining us today, and until the next time, we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Modern Healthcare Back Office, a presentation of ProChant, a wholly owned revenue cycle management service dedicated to serving HME, pharmacy, infusion, and other healthcare providers. Learn more about us at prochant.com.